Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, the folks from Milton Hershey School are here, and we're going to talk about career programs and college preparation. But first, my exclusive interview with the Auditor General of the state of Pennsylvania. I'll give you his name, and we'll chat with him after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, sitting across from me is the Auditor General of the state of Pennsylvania, Eugene DePasquale. I always joke with the Auditor General about his love for Pittsburgh sports teams. He's a Pittsburgh fan, but we air in Western Pennsylvania, so I'll be careful about that.
Absolutely.
And you have a lot of fun with that, don't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's sports. You're having fun with it. And,
absolutely.
Sometimes you have some fun with the Flyer fans come playoff time.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. All right. I want to ask you now, you spent a little more than 4 years in the office. Right. It's a huge office. You're called the Fiscal Watchdog of the state. Your office, you get into, you name it. If there's state money involved, you're in there doing the audits, except for the General Assembly itself. What's the biggest challenge you face?
Well, in the first term, obviously, we tackled a lot of things from school reform, finding ways to make charter schools and traditional school districts run more efficiently. We had the major audit that uncovered thousands of untested rape kits. We even found, 42,000 unanswered phone calls at the child abuse hotline. So that was really, you think, the highlights of the first term. As we move into the second term, we clearly know the state is facing significant financial challenges. So we're going to continue to work to try to uncover ways so that, the money can go where it needs to go. And then there's two really other bigger ticket items as we look forward. One is that, look, the governor and the General Assembly, I think in a very bipartisan fashion, have come together on trying to reduce drug addiction.
Absolutely.
We are going to be, we're conducting right now major audits to try to see which programs are more effective with drug rehabilitation. So we're going to have some results on that soon, but we're auditing that. And also workforce development. Are we really training our workers for the jobs that are going to be available in the future? And we're doing audits on that as well, and I'm doing town halls all over the state. So it's about getting people prepared for the workforce of the future, and drug rehabilitation are two really major items that we're working on to start off the second term.
Let me ask you a question about the opioid treatment initiatives. Now you can't go anywhere, federal government, state government, down in the local communities where this has become a huge concern. I think doctors are now more aware of it. I mean, how do you save money on that? That's something that...
Well, I think there's really maybe two areas. One is that how do you prevent people from getting addicted to this in the first place? The number one path, how do you prevent people from, whether it be heart disease, diabetes, there's a lot of things you can do to help prevent that beforehand. That's priority number one. So on drug treatment, the number one is we find out how do people get addicted to this in the first place, and how do we try to prevent that where possible. Then the second part is when people are addicted and there's state and private programs that are meant to get them off that addiction, what are some of the key things that happen where people don't have a relapse, and what are the key issues that happen where people do have a relapse, to try to learn from those mistakes?
So walk me through how will your office actually go through that? I mean, who will you meet with? You told us what you wanted to find out, but how do you drill down? I mean, you don't have a staff of 10,000.
No, we don't. We have a staff of 470.
I was going to say you don't have.
And really, the team that's working on this audit is really 5 to 6 people at our ground floor. Now, obviously, myself and my management team weigh in on this, but we're doing. I know this is sort of the boring part of this, but it is technically a 3 audit process, and that is we're auditing Department of Corrections, Department of Drug and Alcohol Rehab, and the Department of Human Services. Each of them play a role in this issue, so we're actually auditing all 3 agencies concurrently.
So you will find out where they're spending the money, what kind of activities, how many people, for example, who are involved, and from that you can make some determination about what additional steps need to be taken. Are they doing... Go ahead.
That's right. And this is where I'm going to make it sound more simple than it is. But say 2 people are in a program and one relapses and one doesn't. And I know it's a much broader pool we're looking at, but that we take from that and say, okay, what are the indicators that would show why this person went back into relapse, and this person stayed out. What can we learn from the trends on both areas so that we can then give that information to the General Assembly and the governor?
I was going to say, once you get it, it goes.
Look,
your audits are public. We read them all the time.
Public, they're on our website, but on this one, even more critically, is that I've told my team we've got to get this done in time for the budget process so the legislature and the governor can make funding decisions based on what we find.
Is that something where if you pick a couple of places where they're spending the largest amount of money and then randomly select some others, you'll be able to get some generalities to take? Is that basically the argument?
That's right. Yeah, we'll pick up trends. We'll pick up trends. So when you do these three things, and again, this isn't, when you do these three things, people tend to not relapse. When you don't do them, they tend to. And again, I'm making that sound more simple than it is.
I understand.
But that's the basic idea.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I'm going to ask the Auditor General about other aspects of his agenda. And I want to ask him what's the toughest audit to do. I'm really going to put him on the spot here. Of all the agencies and departments he audits, what's the toughest? We'll be back in a minute.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, I'm switching the tables. I'm finding out what the Auditor General of the state of Pennsylvania, Eugene DePasquale, does. He's usually finding out what other people do. I think I got that.
You're
right.
auditing me.
Yeah, I'm auditing you. That's good. All right, let's talk about of all the areas of state government with all the departments and all the programmatic money that goes out that you audit. What's the most difficult to get at? What you need to know so that people in this state know how the money is spent.
Well, first of all, corrections is the most challenging agency, and it's not because of the leadership there. Secretary Wetzel and his team are great. They've been very proactive, but it is a complicated issue to tackle. First of all, we would all have the goal of not having any crime. If you don't have any crime, you don't have a need for correction.
Right.
Now, obviously, that's a place where I'd be shocked if we ever get to in society. So you have this issue where they are the corrections officers are our public safety officers that are most out of public light. You see your cop, you see the state trooper, but the corrections officers, unless you have a relative in a prison, you really don't see them. So they are a part of our public safety officers that you typically don't see. That's A. B, the issues that they're dealing with are very thorny. On one hand, you have a population that, to be blunt, the vast majority of the public isn't overly sympathetic to. But I do think even if we are not overly sympathetic to them, I still think it is a responsibility of the state to have a safe environment for both the guards and the people in the prison. And there's really two reasons for that. A, I think it's just the right thing to do. B, you do want to breed an environment there where when people are done with their prison sentence, they can get back into society.
And
But it is from a segment, but from a public overall perspective, that is the hardest to actually get the public's attention on.
Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about before is the relationship between your office and immigration.
Right.
I've been talking with you since you was elected. You've been on the program a number of times a year. What's your office doing with immigration?
Well, the area where probably we would have the most impact on is labor and industry and enforcing actually worksite rules. So making sure that actual companies that are doing construction projects are following the rules.
I understand.
And look, as an overall advocacy position as myself, just as an American, forgetting even as an elected official, look, our immigration system is broken, and it's been amazing that there has not been a bipartisan agreement on how to fix it. And it's been needed for 20 years, and that's a whole separate issue. But from my work as the Auditor General, it's labor and industry is really where we would have the most impact on.
Okay, I got it. So as you move forward, you also have something you want to that you now involved with is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which, as you know, the president has said we're out of it. And by the way, so has Senator Toomey and Senator Casey. This is it's about jobs here. They talk about now. Go ahead, pick up on that.
There is maybe two parts. Number one is I know as a Democrat I'm supposed to be against everything Donald Trump says. Well, I think that's a silly idea. There's a lot of things I disagree with on the president.
Sure.
But him trying to negotiate better trade deals on behalf of the United States, I completely agree with him on. And I do think that too many presidents of both parties have negotiated out of weakness as opposed to strength in negotiating our trade deals. So the president pulling out of the TPP and looking to have a one-on-one negotiation with each country, I think is a good thing. And
well, that's hold on. That, as I said, Senator Casey, a Democrat, support that. Senator Toomey does. It's something that looks like it has appeal for both Democrats and Republicans. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And at the bigger pictures, one of the things that anybody who misses this, there's a lot of people that voted for Barack Obama twice that voted for Donald Trump. And mostly it's people that feel that the trade deals have not benefited blue-collar men and women of Pennsylvania. Right. And I do think that as just elected officials, we have to look at that and say, whether we think some of these trade deals in the micro were okay, clearly there are people that didn't feel the benefit of that, and we have to do something to try to help those individuals.
Yeah. All right, before I let you go, as you move forward here, you got almost another 4 years. You're just in office for your second term. What do you think your toughest challenge is?
We, as the fiscal watchdog, the more we can supply real savings to the state and also doing it in a way that makes the programs run better, I think is our biggest overall challenge. So you're talking about the governor's trying to reorganize 4 state agencies into one. Regardless of whether anybody thinks that is a good idea or not, one of my jobs is to try to see, are there going to be real savings from that? And also, at the same time, delivering those programs in an effective way that still matter to a whole bunch of Pennsylvanians. And the same thing would apply with the corrections closings.
I think that's an important aspect of this. My sense, as someone who's taught and written about our state's history for virtually his entire career, when you think about it, a lot of these reorganization plans, as well-intended as they are, don't often reap the fiscal benefits when it's all said and done. Now, I'm not second-guessing what the governor's trying to do, because I think we need to see how that play out. But that's historically been more true than not. And so what you're going to be able to do is to determine whether there is really a fiscal saving or not.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. Well, look, thanks for coming in. You're always welcome here. When you have something, have your folks call. You can always call me.
Absolutely.
We'll get you on the program. You keep us up to date.
You got it. Thanks, Terry.
All right. Coming up, the folks from Milton Hershey School are here. This is very important. Career programs, college preparation. A lot of you have kids and grandkids who are thinking about going to college. What should they do? What kind of education should they get? Something that's my world, by the way. We'll see you in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
As I indicated before the break, we're going to talk a little bit about important things, career programs, college preparation. We're doing our annual checkup with Milton Hershey School. Joining me is Lisa Scullin. She's the VP for Communications at the aforementioned school. And Malcolm Jones, he's I can't say he's a sophomore. Somebody told me he was, but we really do understand he's a junior. We're not going to demote him. Well, both of you, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right, Lisa, let's start with you. What's the purpose of Milton Hershey for the folks who may not be aware of it?
It's a beautiful thing. I have to tell you, when Milton Hershey and his wife, Catherine, created the school over 107 years ago, they wanted children from poverty to lead fulfilling and productive lives. That's essentially the mission. And so, cut to the next scene, 2017, we're pretty much doing that, and that's a whole child approach. So it's not just academics in the classroom, making sure we check the boxes with math and science and reading, but also there's an important out of the classroom piece to that, and that's social emotional learning. That's the soft skills which really help you to be successful in life: communication, collaboration, planning. And so our career tech education program is a critical component of that, helping children find their passion, what it is that can help them lead that fulfilling life.
And that often takes place in internships and other I mean, I'm a huge supporter of those at Franklin and Marshall College. We do lots of them. I'm a big believer that you augment your classroom studies with real experiences, because after you're done, you got to get out into the real world. And you're a big supporter of internships, and you've done one. What have you done?
Well, I did an internship at Hershey Entertainment and Resorts at the creative department. So basically,
did you get to go on all those rides? That's all I want to know. Did they, when you work there, did they give you a ticket to say you can get on all the? It's a great place, right?
Yeah, Hershey Park.
So what? Yeah, go ahead, continue.
Well, basically, I was doing like advertisements for a lot of the Hershey Entertainment facilities, like Hershey Park.
Oh yeah.
The food services like Devon's and Houlihan's, and like Hershey concerts and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if I understand it, that you're going to do another internship coming up.
Yes.
That's in marketing?
Yes.
And do you have an idea where you're doing that?
I think it should also be in the Hershey Entertainment Research.
Well, they have a whole variety. You can stay with one company, but is that the whole point? You do a whole variety of functions?
Yeah.
So let's see, you're a junior. Are you starting those visits yet? You
The
know what I'm
visits?
talking
College
about. Have you
visits.
started those?
Mm-hmm.
All right, now you want to give us
We actually went to Franklin and Marshall.
Well, that's wonderful.
Over, in the summer, last summer.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right, Lisa, back to you. When the internships and all of the out of the classroom experiences, and there are a whole variety of them. You know, they've been doing them for a long time, but I think now virtually every place is doing them. When you go to employers to set these up, do you find a kind of receptivity that you might not have found earlier?
Absolutely. It's a win-win, because if you look at it, the students are getting valuable experience, and the businesses, the organizations are creating their next generation workforce. And how better to make sure that these new workers coming into the workforce have the skills they need, have the training they need, than to have those partnerships. It's really a win-win.
We're going to run to a break, but before we do, I just want to, my observation is, as someone who's had a lot of interns throughout his academic career, is that the other thing it does, it gives students a chance to see if what they're studying and where they might go with a career is something they really want to do.
That's what Malcolm did.
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree.
You changed your mind about what you want to do?
No, I'm still passionate about graphic communications.
Yeah.
And I do think that I do want to major in that in college and
there you
fulfill
go.
a career in graphic
You are allowed to
communications.
change your mind. That's the one thing, you know, at this point in your life, and there's nothing. Yeah,
there's
I mean,
time.
that's actually not a bad thing, but I think the internships serve that other purpose. All right, we're not going to take an internship between this break and when we come back, but we'll see you after the break.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, advancing quality, improving lives.
Welcome back. Well, I'm chatting with Malcolm Jones. He's a student at Milton Hershey School, and Lisa Scullin. She's the VP for Communications at the Milton Hershey School. We do this every now and then to give folks a sense about what's going on in schools, particularly the changes that are taking place in lots of schools, middle schools, high schools, all over the state, all over the country are now getting involved in these kind of internship programs. And I want to ask Lisa, you've even got them going on now at the elementary and middle school. I'd like to see how that works for elementary school. I've actually not heard of that before, so you're breaking news here.
Yes,
Go ahead, talk about that.
We start slow in 4th grade as age appropriate, introducing them to our 11 career pathways.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we start young. Think about it. How many times do you change your major when you go to college? And you can waste some time there. So why not start early, trying out these different career pathways? And, you know, they go a little deeper as they get into middle school, 8th grade, and then by 9th, 10th grade, they're identifying, they're narrowing it down, because you may love graphic design like Malcolm does, and, you know, he understands that's his passion and what he wants, but more often than not, you might have an idea of something you want to do in 4th grade because an aunt or an uncle or someone you know that you respect did that, but you get into the nuts and bolts of it and you don't enjoy it as you thought you would. So instead of having that time and money spent in college, which still happens, understandably, but also knowing that...
And I would think that and again, you went there in the 8th grade, so when did you start doing an internship?
10th grade. I did.
So you were in 10th, so 10th, 11th, and obviously you'll do one next year, I would presume.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm still a little, I don't know quite how it would work for elementary school. I'm just envisioning my 4-year-old grandson and the likelihood that, you know, but I guess you can find ways and things. But have you talked to younger kids at your school about it?
My art teacher was telling me about how they've been doing, like, I guess for like the engineering aspect, they were doing like Lego building.
Oh, yeah.
Like Lego robotics or something like that.
My grandson loves the Legos. He has a whole table full and he has them all in boxes, and we're talking about go ahead, I didn't want to interrupt you. That's amazing.
Yeah, like they just been working on like Lego robotics and like talking about like movement between like gears and stuff like that, and how like that controls like function like lighting and energy and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool. So what percentage of what percentage of your students are actually engaged in these programs?
All of them. Yes, in the last 5 years, 100% of graduates left Milton Hershey School with a nationally recognized certification. Last year, our graduates had 2. So every one of the seniors, and that works if you want to get a job right out of high school, or if you're going to college. 80 to 90% of our students continue their education, but then they have that to fall back on that certification.
Did you always know you wanted to go to college?
Yes.
I mean, right, but you have friends who are uncertain about whether they want to go and learn a trade or a skill or go, is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just curious about that, because about that decision and when it gets made. Well, look, I want to thank you for coming in. I think this is, and you'll keep us up to date on this. I think this is a wonderful idea. More and more schools are doing it. As I said, at Franklin and Marshall College, virtually every department has this kind of a program, or these kinds of programs. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.